Have you ever heard of a case that stayed unsolved for decades until the killer was finally identified, only to find out that justice cannot be served? This case is a chilling reminder that evil can lurk in even the most idyllic places, and that justice is not always served in the way that we hope. Join me as we dive into the disturbing case of Lora Ann Huizar and the mystery that haunted a community for almost 4 decades. The tragic case of Lora Ann Huizar, who was sexually assaulted and murdered at the age of 11 in 1983 in Fort Pierce, St. Lucie County, Florida, has finally been solved, but justice will not be served. Although the suspected killer has been identified, they cannot be brought to trial because they died before they could be brought to justice. St. Lucie County was a beautiful place, with pristine beaches and diverse waterways, but Lora's murder shattered the illusion of safety in the community. Lora was a bright and feisty girl who was in 6th grade at Chester A. Moore Elementary School when she disappeared on November 6, 1983. She was last seen near Midway Road and Okeechobee Road in Fort Pierce, just a few feet away from her home. She had been sleeping over at a friend's house and was on her way home with a pile of clothes in her hands when she vanished. After days of searching, Lora's body was found on November 9, 1983. She had been sexually assaulted and strangled to death. Despite an extensive investigation, the case remained unsolved for nearly 30 years until the suspected killer was finally identified in 2022. Unfortunately, the perpetrator had already passed away, so justice could not be served. The tragedy of Lora's murder reminds us that evil can lurk in even the most idyllic places, and that the loss of young life is a heartbreaking and unforgivable crime. The fact that the killer was never brought to trial serves as a reminder that justice is not always served in the way that we hope, but we must continue to seek it out and strive for a world where such heinous crimes are prevented and punished to the fullest extent of the law. Lora's family was thrown into a state of worry when she failed to return home as planned. Despite their efforts to locate her, they were unable to do so. Her parents called her friend, who informed them that Lora had left hours ago. They searched the area but could not locate her. The family then went to the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office to report her missing. However, the authorities did not take reports of missing teenagers seriously at that time, and they suggested that adolescents who did not return home on time were often playing with their friends and had lost track of time. This approach left Lora's parents helpless, and they were forced to wait for their daughter to show up at home, which never happened. After the family insisted that Lora would never go anywhere alone, a BOLO, be on the lookout sheet, was put out. Unfortunately, no large-scale search was conducted by the authorities in the initial phase of the investigation. A piece of information regarding Lora came to light when a deputy from the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office, James Howard Harrison, came forward saying that he saw the girl walking near a gas station close to her home. He had been on patrol in the same area on the day Lora went missing. That was the last time anyone saw Lora alive. On November 9, 1983, 3 days after Lora went missing, her family received the tragic news that her lifeless body, weighing only 90 pounds, had been found in a drainage ditch. Her body was taken to the medical examiner's office for an autopsy, which revealed that she had been sexually assaulted and strangled to death on the same day she went missing in a brutal act of violence. Lora's family was devastated by her death, and they were disappointed with the half-hearted efforts of the local authorities. They could not understand why the police had never bothered to start a large-scale search for Lora. Their small community was shocked by this brutal crime, but it was too late for any explanation. People wanted nothing more than to find the person responsible for taking the life of this innocent girl. Sadly, it would be decades before the mystery could be solved. In 1984, the murder of Lora Ann, a young girl, shook the St. Lucie County community. Despite a brief investigation and interviews with witnesses, the case remained unsolved for 4 decades until the sheriff's office established a cold case squad in 2020. Detective Paul Taylor led the reinvestigation and took a personal interest in the case, seeing similarities between Lora's story and his own experience of losing his son to suicide. During his investigation, Taylor discovered that the last person to see Lora alive and report the discovery of her body was James Howard Harrison, a former St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office deputy who had never been a suspect before. Taylor also found holes in the original investigation, including discrepancies in the witness's testimony and Harrison's behavior at the crime scene. One of the men who discovered Lora's body described the incident as deeply traumatizing and remembered the crime scene in detail. However, his account did not match what was in the case file. He also revealed that Harrison had asked them to leave immediately after reporting the discovery, and that no other officer had spoken to them further. Furthermore, Harrison had spent 20 20 minutes alone with Lora's body before the other officers arrived, which raised suspicions. As a result, Harrison was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. This case highlights the importance of cold case squads and reinvestigations in bringing justice to victims and their families. Detective Taylor's dedication and persistence paid off, leading to the arrest of the perpetrator after 4 decades of the case remaining cold. The trauma and impact of such heinous crimes can last a lifetime, and justice is crucial in providing closure and healing for those affected. Detective Taylor and his team had finally found a suspect in the murder case of Lora Ann Huizar, and it was someone they could have never predicted. They began to piece together the evidence, trying to make sense of why Harrison, a law enforcement officer, did not offer a ride to a young girl carrying a bundle of clothes whom he had encountered before her murder. They theorized that he moved the body to get rid of potential evidence before backup arrived. However, Harrison's checkered past made the team more suspicious. Complaints had been brought forward from within the sheriff's office about his inappropriate conduct with young women while on duty as a deputy. Furthermore, he had been accused of molesting young girls in his job as a preacher at the Bethel Baptist Church. Detective Taylor uncovered evidence of Harrison tampering with evidence at the crime scene, moving things around, and hindering the investigation. Despite his past, Harrison was never formally charged with any wrongdoing. He was only kicked out of the church and resigned from the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office just 5 months after Lora's murder. He then moved around, working with 10 different law enforcement agencies over the years. Every time he started over, he used his position to maintain access to potential victims. Sheriff Ken J. Mascara, who used to work with Harrison, had voiced concerns about his inappropriate interactions with young people, but those complaints were never acted upon in 1979 or 1980. The lack of follow-up allowed Harrison to continue his predatory behavior for years to come. Detective Taylor proceeded to gather more definitive evidence after receiving the new information. In 2021, a private DNA labs analysts were able to extract DNA from the victim's sexual assault, which indicated that the perpetrator was male. However, the DNA was too degraded to obtain a 100% match. Despite the inconclusive DNA evidence, the detectives concluded that there was enough circumstantial evidence and probable cause to consider Harrison responsible for Lora's murder. Chief Deputy Brian Hester announced in a February 2022 press conference that they had established probable cause that Harrison abducted, sexually assaulted, and murdered the juvenile victim. Sadly, Harrison passed away from cancer in 2008, eluding justice once again. Lora's family was in disbelief about the unraveling of this cold case. Lora's older brother, Joe Huizar, stated, "It was like a dream. Disbelief. After all this time, you're telling me you're able to tell us who murdered our little sister." Unfortunately, Lora's parents did not live to see this day, as her mother passed away in 2007 and her father in 2009. Despite the outcome, Lora's surviving family was grateful to Detective Taylor for solving the case, particularly since no one expected it. Numerous police departments in the state are currently examining their cold cases because they believe there may be other victims. The tragic case of Lora Ann Huizar serves as a sobering reminder of the devastating impact of violent crimes and the importance of seeking justice for victims and their families. Although the perpetrator was finally identified and arrested after 4 decades, justice was not served as they had already passed away. Nonetheless, the work of cold case squads and dedicated detectives like Paul Taylor is crucial in bringing closure to families and ensuring that such heinous crimes are never forgotten. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel.